Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Wednesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, back at it. And, man, we got some scrimmage talk to get into based on what some of the coaches had to say after practice today. It's a Mike Babcock Wednesday. Babbers from Hail Varsity will be with us in 20 minutes. Shuey is preying on that warm weather here Sunday and into next week. Get the old putter out. So we'll talk with Mike Schuhart from Wilderness Ridge. And then Bill Bender going to join us. Bill also put out his Ultimate College Football Top 15 division that you've seen the Athletic and ESPN do. And Bill Bender, a national college football writer, obviously with the sporting news. So we'll get into that. NFL Draft a week from tomorrow. So we'll get some thoughts on Zach Taylor, on the Bengals, the quarterback group, and just where things can slot. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Email Chris at hailvarsity.com. Give us a follow. Find us on Twitter at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel, at Schmidt_radio for Chris Schmidt. So, Elijah, you grew up doing a lot of home improvement, construction work. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're very handy.
I like to say I am. Yeah, I'd say I am personally. I'm not sure.
So my question is, were you supervised or were you left alone to help Dad? Little of both?
Little of both. Usually it was like start out supervised and then, all right, you're not going to chop a finger off, go for it.
Right. So the adhesive materials, it's not stuck to Elijah's face, mm-hmm. right? You weren't making balloon animals. You weren't going Happy Gilmore with the nail gun. You may be off to the side, but there was no open fire within some of the work you were doing. My point is when you have a bad day on the site, you're getting a tetanus shot because there's been skin that's been pierced by a sharp object, right? It's a bad day at work. And a good day is, oh, man, sweet, we finished the project, on to the next house. Mm-hmm. Okay? So Nebraska fans right now there's this limbo on the offense. You know what you want it to be? 100 every Saturday. You want to see power football. You want to see the run game. You want to see deep passes to the plethora of super talented wide receivers. You want to see the tight ends get used. You don't want to see any offsides or holdings or false starts by the offensive line, right? So today, by all accounts, and you and I were unable to sneak into practice.
Though we tried. We did try.
I did not. I did not try. But the long and short of it is it was not a good day for the offense. Here is Sean Beckton, the tight end coach. He will back up what we've been hearing because he's the one who told us.
Today, the offense and defense have been going back and forth all spring. Today, I didn't think the offense came out with the right attitude and mentality that we need to be champions on a daily basis. So we got to learn from that. We picked it up as the practice went along. And in order for us to be great, we got to, as soon as we hit that grass field, we got to make sure we're locked and loaded and focused. For the most part, the defense, pretty much gave it to us today. But the guys will come back, they'll bounce back and learn from it. We kind of needed that a little bit because we've been doing extremely well on offense. So when we have a little bit of a setback, we're going to see and challenge our guys and see if they're going to come out ready to go on Friday.
So this was the final scrimmage, right? And you'll get the spring game. That's usually toned down, but notes are taken, progress is documented, and it ain't over either. Plenty of time between now and May 1st, and you're still assessing, you're still grading, you're still trying to figure things out. You know what you got at quarterback. Don't know what you have at either of your guard spots yet. I mean, you've got Piper at one, right? But there's still some push behind him potentially. And then you got Sichterman and Bando on the right side. You've got a receiving core that looked nice, was refreshing to see with an open practice. But today was a scrimmage, so it wasn't 7-on-7 or it wasn't one-on-one drills down the sideline. There was hitting and tackling. And when you hear energy, when you hear consistency, that's just kind of this whole work-in-progress approach maybe you have as a Nebraska football fan right now, knowing what you have with the offense, and then also considering the source. How many years has Coach McBride been coming on? Probably 12 or 13. God love him. And he's awesome. And what does he say during spring? What does he say during the summer? What does he say during the fall about the back and forth that is a necessary evil? What we don't know is just the ceiling of this defense. Okay, you've got a lot of super seniors back. You return 9 starters. You got a guy like Cam Taylor-Britt that's always cranked up to go play football. You have some real difference makers on the defensive line this year. You've got some athletes at linebacker, and you got 75% of a secondary that knows what is going to happen with the route, with the play call. I'm not making excuses for the offense. I'm just saying the defense, man, is playing fast and furious and free because they've done it for 100 years, most of them. So they're going to hand it to you some days. The key for me here with this offense is, can you settle in with can you identify first what you're good at? Secondly, can you go run it, and can you run it at a high level most of the time? That consistency thing. Third, have you settled in on what you want to be? Okay? And what are we hearing a lot about? We're hearing a lot about Yant at running back. Great, good-sized dude behind that offensive line. Give me more. We know that there's some dudes at wide receiver that have been able to get separation. And you heard Becton say it's been a good back and forth. So it's not like the defense has been handing it to the offense every day, all day. You've had good moments with the offense, but when you hear energy, right, that's that hunger. Do you come out ready to go? Do you come out ready to kick ass? And defense did today. Offensively, they'll have a chance to respond. And that's what you ideally want, right? It's what Vegas gets. They get the VIG. They get the 10%, whether they're going to win more times than they lose. But worst case, they're getting their 10%. They're getting their commission. And right now, you hope the spring has gone to the point where both sides of the ball are getting their commission, where you'll have some days where the offense can push the defense, knock the defense down a peg or two. Defense will respond, give it back to the offense. Offense has to go regroup and come out fired up and ready to go and atone. You want the yin and the yang. And today it was highlighted by not only Becton but also Coach Austin. We'll hear from him in a second. Just what didn't happen. Here is Greg Austin on the issues today. Consistency being one. And again, we didn't see it, so were guys not getting open? Were guys dropping passes? Was the run game not good enough on first down? Was the run game not good enough on third and short? Where were the quarterbacks at with their throwing? You know, what was it just about sluggishness? What was the point of attack like on the line of scrimmage? We don't know, other than it wasn't up to their standard.
Consistency. Wanted to see consistency. Guys have been consistent all spring and didn't come out as consistent as we wanted to today. Across the board. Yeah, it was the whole offense. I mean, it was pick a position. You know, guys weren't dialed into the details of what they were doing. And certainly, you know, our defense played with more energy this morning initially. And, you know, they carried it throughout practice. We had some bright moments, but, you know, overall just was not to our standard.
Details and energy. Should we play some ominous music? Because the details part has been what's been driving Nebraska fans nuts. You're waiting for the offense to take off. I will say this. I don't know how they have a high level of expectation down there, but in their defense, good luck getting me some consistency against a veteran defense when I'm still figuring out my starting 5 offensive linemen and most of my running backs, at least to our thought process, haven't been carrying the football because they've been dinged. Now, Yant could be phenomenal, and I hope he is if you're a Nebraska fan because of his size, pairing that with the offensive line. But Yant's also a story right now because guess what, Elijah? He's available, right? He's one of the backs that's available along with Tompkins we saw last Saturday, along with Scott. So there's your 3 right now. But it'd be hard for me to expect a ton of consistency from the offense, working towards it, yes. But you're going to get it handed to you in a scrimmage based on where this offense is compared to where the D is.
Yeah, and my question is whenever the defense is, quote-unquote, handing it to you, are you still able to be...
Those are my words.
Yeah, but are you still able to be productive as an offense? Because we saw last year, whenever you came out in the defense punching your mouth, take the Illinois game, for example, the offense rolled over. They weren't productive at all. Everything just seemed to fall apart even more after like the first quarter, just because they had no confidence. My question is, when they're going through these practices and the defense is clearly winning the day, can they at least be productive enough to get a couple first downs, drive the ball a little bit? What is the definition of the defense handing it to the offense? That's what I want to know from this practice. Is it, these guys can't string three plays together and get 10 yards, or is it, these drives are stalling out around the 40-yard line, which is, it's still progress, but it's things you can work on.
And we don't fully know.
No.
But it's something to talk about today because of just how blunt Coach Becton and Coach Austin were today about it. And the energy part is, I'm not concerned about it. You're going to have ups and downs if you're 18 to 22. You can't have them during the fall. Mm-hmm. And days like today will reinforce, hopefully, that you can't have them on Saturdays from an energy and a detail standpoint. Another thought here from Coach Becton here with the offense today, and the good news is the offense has gotten better. I will say that, has shown some progress. And you're kind of in figure it out mode right now with some known quantity at quarterback, at least your starter. That's the other part. When we talk about the inconsistency and the energy, is it the backup quarterbacks that had an off day, or is it more about the offensive line, or is it about the receiver room? And I could see the receiver room, as nice as those options are, I could see the receiver room getting D'd up pretty well by the Nebraska secondary, because that is your strength of the football team, is your 2 safeties and your 1 corner. And you got other guys at that oppo spot that are really fighting like hell to win a spot opposite Cam Taylor-Britt. Not that they've handed out starting positions, but based on how we feel or what we see. More from Becton.
Well, they played with a more intensity than the offense, and it started the first play. They brought the energy. You can tell they had the energy. Offensively, we didn't have the energy, and that's on the offensive coaches and the head coach to make sure the entire team is ready to go to practice. It shouldn't wait 20 plays in for the offense to get it together. But we're going to bounce back. We're going to bounce back, and we're going to fix it. We've been having a great spring. We're not going to let one mishap at the start of practice interfere with what we're trying to get done this season.
So the proverbial wake-up call, and that's okay. As we fast forward here to projections here, spring leading to summer, summer leading to fall, you got your FPI numbers that are out. And I know we touched on this a little while back, but just in comparison to the rest of the Big Ten, Nebraska has the most difficult strength of schedule in the conference this year. They have the 19th most difficult schedule overall. And if you're looking at FPI, and the FPI looks at how you compare to an average football team. And what Nebraska's not done is lived up to the hype, or the hype being, okay, in the last 2 seasons, Nebraska started out around number 22 in 2020, ranked 33rd in the FPI in 2019, and they finished at 44th and 47th respectively. In 2018 they were 50th and they finished 57th. Right now they're ranked 46th, projected at a 6-6 mark if you round up the 5.7 or 8 in the win column. But Nebraska has a chance, 54% chance per the FPI, to win 6 games this year, which gets you bowl eligible. And the schedule is very real. Oklahoma's the second-ranked team. Ohio State's number 5. Whiskey and Iowa are 15th and 23rd. Northwestern comes in at 30. Buffalo's number 64. And for good measure, Illinois, which, man, the more I think about that, that's going to be it's a huge opener, but it's going to be a tough opener just because Bielema can, dare I say this out loud, can coach. And he knows the Big Ten. Their FPI's number 87. We'll get some thoughts from Babbers here, just what he has heard from the coaches, kind of doing the tea leaves thing, also some Husker baseball. Great to be with you. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Scrolled through the mashup video from Nebraska football social media. I saw a fumble and I saw an interception. Tables are being flipped right now. That dreaded turnover word. We say hi to Mike Babcock, HailVarsity.com, and magazine at MD Babs on Twitter. Babbers, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing okay, Smitty. How about you?
We're all right. We're just trying to sift through kind of the tone post-practice here with the offense and the defense. And I want to go back to your expertise here. And believe it or not, right, I mean, there were some days that the offense wasn't Osborne-esque when T.O. was calling the plays during spring and during fall, right? I mean, you remember some bad or some, dare I say, disappointing days of offensive practice with Nebraska football. It can't always be the scoring explosion.
No, it can't always be. And one of the things you have to look at, Smitty, is how you define it. I mean, so the defense, you got to feel good about the defense too, right? Mm-hmm. So was it just lack of energy, the reason the offense didn't perform up to standard, or was it because the defense performed up to standard and the defense is going to be pretty good? I mean, that's the problem in the spring, is how you evaluate when you're going against yourself and you say, well, the offense didn't produce, but that means the defense probably did. So, how do you define it? Was it totally just a lack of energy? Spark what you needed on offense, or was it because the defense is going to be pretty good? That's the question that you would ask, I think.
And Mike, with as good as we were expecting the defense to be, all those returning starters coming back, are you a little surprised it took us this far in spring to get some sort of warning bells? Oh, the offense didn't have a good day. The defense really beat them out there. I mean, it seems to me it could almost be seen as a positive that it took 2.5 weeks of spring ball before we're finally getting word that, the defense beat the offense in a practice?
Well, Elijah, it could have been, just that the coaches didn't think that the energy was there on the offense and that the defense has performed. I mean, Deontre Thomas said on Monday that, he felt like across the board, offense and defense was as good as he's seen since he's been here. And so, he was very positive about where the defense was. So I think that the defense has probably been doing something, and maybe that was just a question of energy, and, maybe they've been it's been kind of a standoff. The offense has played pretty well, and the defense has played pretty well, and the coaches on both sides can feel good about it. But I don't know if it necessarily has to be one or the other, but that's a possibility is the way I would look at it. And I don't think that the defense probably waited this long to really perform to standard.
Mike Babcock's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine at MD Babs on Twitter. So it's okay to have a football team that has a defense that is the strength of the team. I remember, I look back to some of the really good years for Nebraska and how incredible that 99 defense was. And that was, they had the Newcomb-Crouch ordeal. And eventually they settled in on Crouch, and I'm not calling this year's team 99. They finished number 2 in the country. But the point of it is it took a while for that offense to kind of click, but once it did, man, they were dynamite. But you had Mike and Ralph Brown and Vanden Bosch and company and Steve Warren killing people. I mean, they were doing their thing, and it's okay to lean. What is the ceiling, or what is your definition of a pretty good defense in the Big Ten for Nebraska?
Well, you got to be aggressive, and I think you have to create turnovers, and you got to get pressure on the quarterback. But the game has changed dramatically. I think in the last 20 years, to where what's a good defense then and what's a good defense now is going to be dramatically different. I mean, you're not going to limit offenses to just a handful of yards. Offensively, you've got to. I think you've got, like I said, I think you have to create turnovers, apply pressure, and it's just not the same in terms of numbers statistically. Sure. That you're not going to give up very many yards and so forth. You're probably going to give up some yardage, but you need to make the plays when they count. You got to keep teams out of the end zone as best you can. Because, offenses are so potent now, and they've made adjustments, and the rules have changed a little bit to, I think, favor the offense. So it's a dramatically different situation, I think.
You can give up between the 20s as long as you're getting off the field, 70% of the time, 65% of the time on third down, and it's field goals or it's really tough red zone. I mean, those are all situational statistics that I look at a Northwestern team who's been really good the last couple of years and won the West. Their offenses have been they haven't wrecked the car, right?
Yeah,
they just keep it on the road. But man, the defenses came to play and kept them in about every football game to the tune of 2 West titles in 3 years. Now the 3-9 year was horrific, but long and short, you can do well in the Big Ten with your defense and some special teams and a run game, and that's where I want to go next is the run game. What's your takeaway here? What do you read into with Jaquez Yant at running back? Is this a steal for Nebraska? And I know that it's just spring ball, or is it more about availability here, where Yant's a nice story, but you have a number of guys that did get scholarships, and Yant may get one, but they're watching and not playing this time of year.
Yeah, I think you have to sort of temper the enthusiasm, or whatever the word is you want to call it, in relationship to Yant, just because it is the spring. And we've seen guys that have really, drawn a lot of attention in the spring, and then when you get to fall, it's a whole different thing. And when you've got guys that are injured, and you can't get them in there, and they don't get an opportunity, it kind of changes things. So I think it's kind of a wait and see thing, but it's certainly a good thing, that the positive things are being said about him. And I think he had the potential to be a scholarship recruit, but I think there was some question about eligibility or whatever that maybe put some teams off on whether they were going to offer him or not. And so Nebraska could have gotten a steal there, but again, I think you have to temper your enthusiasm till you get to fall to see how things go.
Yeah, Mike, the way I see this is it's another big-bodied running back who comes into this Nebraska system and actually seems to fit well. And I know it's early. There's been injuries in the running back room. We're not actually quite sure how good Yant actually is, but I look back at Divine Nzigba, who's a bigger-bodied guy than the guys that the coaching staff brought in initially, and I think back to Greg Bell and Maurice Washington. And you can say the same for Dedrick Mills, another bigger-body guy who likes contact. And then you see Yant come in, and he's overtaking these guys who have been here for a while, but they don't have that big wrecking ball-type body that he does. Is this just Nebraska's progression under Scott Frost in the Big Ten, going back to a traditional-style Big Ten running back?
Well, maybe you need that. Maybe you need that in the Big Ten. I mean, he's listed at 225, but we found out today he's like 240, right? So,
he's 250, man.
He's a big guy, and that's probably going to help you in the Big Ten. And that's one of the things that we've seen is that I think when Nebraska came into the when Frost got here, I guess, was it Scott or was it Bill Moose that said they're going to have to adjust to Nebraska, and Nebraska, I think, has realized now it has to adjust to the Big Ten, and that's probably one of the areas. But a big back certainly helps, and offensive line still starts with that. So you got to feel good about the offensive line, and you put a big back in there, maybe that's the answer.
I think Coach Austin is loving the fact he said today 9 guys. He's got 9 Big Ten dudes, and you got to find 5, and you think 3 are kind of solidified with some backups that continue to develop. You're still figuring out the guard spot, which is nice, but once that settles and gels, you can, at the end of spring, kind of pencil in who did what for you, and then move forward here and then kind of refine it and settle as you get into the fall. Mike, a couple minutes here. Your takeaway here on Michigan State, Nebraska again on a roll. They swept Penn State. They're on the road in East Lansing. I know the Michigan series looms as well, but first things first, Sparty. What do we know about Michigan State?
Well, Will Bolt said that it's a speed team. They got speed. They got good speed. They're not going to hit a lot of home runs. They hit doubles, and they're aggressive. Their speed. But Nebraska continues to. The mantra is just game to game, and gritty beats pretty. And today it was somebody asked Jackson Hallmark if playing a couple of road trips back to back, a little bit of distance. It's certainly not as bad as Penn State, but you still got to make some travel there. Don't care. He said that's another one of the mantras around Nebraska baseball. Don't care. If you got to travel, don't care. If you're a little bit getting tired as you get into 24 games into the season, don't care. You just do what you do. So I think that's how you have to look at it. Going to Michigan State is the same way. And you got, 6 guys hitting over, the first 6 guys in the batting order are all hitting over 300.
Man.
And you're getting production 1 through 9. You can't ask for anything more than that.
About a minute left here, Mike. And when I look at the Huskers, their standings in the Big Ten, they're at the top, a half-game lead on Michigan. And it almost seems like the season's going to finish as a 2-horse race. And guess what? Last weekend of the series is Michigan coming to town. So kind of a 2-part question here. How big is that series against Michigan going to be? It's obviously going to be huge. I think it's going to determine the Big Ten. But then how important is it for Nebraska to go and sweep or at least get 2 or 3 against Michigan State this weekend?
Well, I think it's important. Every series is important. I think getting 2 out of 3 is really important, and I think the Nebraska players have said that. But the key is that the players are not looking for that Michigan series. That you don't look past what you got ahead of you, and they got Indiana down the line too. So the schedule is kind of backloaded with some pretty tough opponents. But as long as the players are not looking ahead, they're taking it game to game the way they say they are. I think Nebraska's in a pretty good position to get at least 2 out of 3 this weekend and move forward.
Babbers, what's coming up in the Hail Varsity magazine issue that's slated to go to print?
Well, there's a really good story on Kate Smith, the golfer, the University of Nebraska golfer that played in the women's amateur at Augusta National. That's really good. And then there's Derek Peterson did a nice story on spring football and the offense. So those are kind of the 2 feature things. And Brandon Vogel has a nice column on volleyball. There's just a lot of good stuff in there. Getting ready, working for the yearbook, which is 2 months down the line yet too. So
we can't wait for that. Babbers, we'll talk next week. Thanks for the time today.
Hey, great talking to you. Be safe, guys.
All right, Mike Babcock with us on Hail Varsity.
30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Thank you, Kramer. Back with you at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, We'll check in with Bill Bender, the sporting news. Is Bill going to sound off here as he's got his Super League top 15? We bring in Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, you got the weatherman working for you here starting Sunday into next week. How excited are you to be outdoors? I know you're probably standing outside right now just smiling at the progress being made at Wilderness, but the weather should match the time of year eventually.
It's about time. My goodness. Where's that warm weather been? Waiting. Everybody's been waiting for it.
No, I need to get out and see you, and I know you got Fit Fridays rocking and rolling. Let's start there before we get into a little football and golf. But folks can pop on by Wilderness Ridge. They can also check out a way to get a membership for sure and go have a bourbon or a vodka on the deck. I mean, those are all awesome things. But the Fit Fridays are super key. And, man, you got some great gear coming in, and you're there to help folks out.
No question. We have Ping that's coming in this Friday. So the Ping rep will be in with all their new stuff, which they have quite a few new products out. So Ping will be in this Friday. Next Friday we'll have Mizuno. So anything you want to come out and try and get fit for, call us up. We'll hook you up with a time and get you fit up.
Let's get a little bit deeper into that because I got fit and I've got some hybrids that are Mizuno, and dear old dad had the Ping thing working, and I will the Ping off the tee box. Let's just say it doesn't look like me off the tee box anymore. So the equipment matters is what I'm getting at. And, you know, if you get it fit perfectly, man, that can make it more enjoyable.
No question about it. No, fit's very important. I mean, it's not the all end all to everything, but it sure does help, especially with the new technology they have out. There's so many cool things they can do with the technology as far as adjusting of the heads and finding the right shaft and the right length, and just helps you hit it more solid. You know, the more solid you hit it, the straighter you hit it, the more fun you have.
Mike Schuhart's with us, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, what are you wanting to see come May 1st, aside from sunshine in an early morning tee time? Let's talk football a minute here. Your level of concern when you hear the offense had a bad day today?
I'm more concerned about our defense. I think if our defense can play halfway decent, I think our offense will be up and down for a while. A lot of new guys, young. You don't have any of your running backs in there, you know. So a lot of it on the offense, I think, is going to be how healthy do they get and how up to speed do they get, you know, which you got all summer. I would anticipate that, and I'd see that coming along. And, you know, Adrian has he taken a step in, you know, being older and wiser and more mature back there? You know, can he just manage it better? Because I think a lot of those young guys will come along. I mean, it sounds like there's a ton of talent there. Mm-hmm. They just got to get reps and they got to get comfortable out there playing.
Mike, whenever you look at the defense real quick, just what are your expectations for them this year, and what are you looking for them in the spring game? I mean, I think everyone's expecting at least as good as last year with all those returning starters. But could you think we could be looking at top 25 defense possibly, or is that too much to ask?
I think so. It's all going to me, and it has been for a long time, it's like how much pressure can you get on the quarterback? I mean, they haven't got pressure on the quarterback for years. So it's like, can your two DNs basically be able to get pressure on the quarterback? That makes everybody's life easier. It makes your linebackers' life easier. It makes your DB's life easier if you can put a little pressure on the quarterback. If you can't put any pressure on the quarterback, I don't care how good they are. I mean, they can only cover for so long. So it's like that's always my thing that I keep looking at going into the season is that do we have some DNs that can put pressure on the quarterback?
There's a roster full of outside linebackers and defensive linemen, but we just don't know, at least based on last year. You saw him get after Purdue. You saw him get after Rutgers, but a lot of the better teams had time to throw the pill around. Now, I do like the ability to stop the run because that's your house of cards to me is can you stop the run? But to your point, the next step's getting after the quarterback. And I just don't know if they don't have a dude or they're still developing a dude to go terrorize a quarterback. I think, Randy Gregory. I think of Malik Collins collapse in the pocket. Zaire Anderson was good off the edge. I mean, Nebraska did a lot. Nebraska also, Shuey, I mean, they brought a lot of pressure with their corners. And I think of Deontay Williams with the old strip sack. That's my ball, punk, against Penn State with the scoop and score. So are you still going to bring pressure from your secondary, or can you count on your backers or your defensive line to just go win?
Well, if you can get the combination, man, then you're really good. Because you brought some DBs in there. So if you can get some, DN pressure, and you can bring that in every now and then, that's just that much more pressure you're putting on the quarterback. And to me, that's the key, man. If your quarterback doesn't have time, I mean, there's only so much he can do. So it's like you got to be able to get after him, and then that causes them 3 and outs, which gets our offense more time to have the football. So it's just you got to get pressure on the quarterback, man. That's my biggest thing.
Shuey is with us, Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, a thought here as we kind of look towards the U.S. Open out at Torrey Pines South in San Diego. And, of course, the Women's Open going to be in San Francisco at the Olympic Club. A thought on both of those courses as we kind of preview the U.S. Open here, men's and women's.
Yeah, Torrey Pines it's a big golf course now. When they redid it, added a bunch of length to it, kind of narrowed some of the holes up. I mean, that's a big golf course. So you got to hit it long. You got to hit it anytime you play U.S. Open, that rough's always up, fairways are narrow, so you better be able to hit it in the fairway. You better be able to hit it somewhere too. So it'll be fun. I mean, it's a great venue, and the West Coast has a lot of great golf courses, with the women out there and the men out there. Pretty special.
Shuey, how can folks get a hold of you, find you, and get more info on a membership?
Yeah, just give us a call out here at Wilderness Ridge, and we can take care of anything you need. If you have information, if you need information on membership, we'll send you in the right direction. Club fitting, anything along those lines. Just give us a call out here, and we'll be happy to help you.
Go see Shuey. Shuey, we'll do this again next week. Thanks for the time today.
You bet. Thank you. Guys, stay safe.
All right, there he is, Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey is he's keeping warm. He's probably pacing around because he can get you some lessons, some work done on your game indoors, obviously. But Shuey's an outdoor guy, man. And once it gets warm. Do you golf much?
No, I'm more of a bowling guy myself. It's like the cheaper version of golf.
Okay, so, we went with Willie J a couple weekends ago, and his glorious mullet was putting for dough.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Bill Bender on the way, sporting news, some college football, some Husker thoughts. NFL draft almost a week away. A reminder to buckle up. There's over 1,500 crashes each year in Nebraska involving an impaired driver driving drunk, buzzed, or high. Never acceptable. Law enforcement officers are working every day to stop it before any more people are killed or injured. If you're going to drive, don't drink. If you do drink, designate a sober driver or get a ride share. A DUI costs you more than you think. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So as we're getting back to it, have you ever been out to like Yellowstone or out in nature and actually seen a bear?
Actually seen a bear?
Like a live bear. Like we saw a buffalo, we saw a donkey named Icaramba when we were kids out in Yellowstone or at Fort Robinson, I should say. Big difference. Point is the donkey stuck his face in the passenger window because we had it cracked. We didn't roll the window down to say, hey, would you like some Cheetos? But I'm scrolling through some social media here, and how many jackasses decide to not only use their camera up close and personal with a grizzly bear, but also open the door. I mean, it's like when bears get angry. And I'm watching a video feed here.
Well, I've seen a lion in the wild.
Oh, man.
Okay,
Okay, because you've been on a safari.
Yeah, it was 2 lions, actually, and they were...
Sizing you up?
No, they were we'll say husband and wife.
Okay. Oh, they were busy.
They were busy. I guess maybe not many people have seen that. I don't know, but they were.
Oh, who hasn't gone to the zoo and gotten sex ed 101 by mistake when you're about 4? Mommy, what's that?
Little afternoon delight.
Hardest thing to explain to Junior, we were at the Omaha Zoo, was there's like 4 of them. Busy.
You gotta explain the concept of swingers.
a little bit. It's no longer that they spit at you or throw their poo. No, they're auditioning. Okay, speaking of auditions, Nebraska working on their punting. That's the best I could do, transitioning from zoo mating to Nebraska's punting. This is pretty good. Connor Colt laid out just all the work that went into our friend from Australia, Dan Cherney. And he's, you get an Aussie punter, they can kick the hell out of the ball. They're also tough dudes. You look at all the Aussie folks in the NFL, they take pride in being part of the special teams tackle brigade. So it's been a learning year for Cherney as he was getting healthy from an injury, but this is pretty good from post-practice today.
I think he's still trying to understand the game of football, coming from Australia. Yeah, I don't think he's a little confused that all he has to do is go out there and punt the ball and maybe get a tackle if need be. The fact he didn't know the difference between offense and defense, we had to start pretty broad. And how many yards it was for a first down and all that. But, no, he's getting the hang of it real well.
So, good. You have one job, bro, and that's put it inside the 20. Fair enough.
I mean, maybe he can maybe we could use him in some other places too.
Well, if he's he
looks like he's a pretty well built dude.
He's a big guy. No, he likes golf. So Bill Bender will check in. Sporting news, thoughts on the Big Red and the NFL draft. It's Hail Varsity, a Wednesday, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time to talk some college football. Love spending time with Bill Bender of the Sporting News at BillBender92 is where you follow him on Twitter. You read him for college football, sportingnews.com. Bill, what's going on, man? How are you?
There's snow on the ground in Ohio, Chris. What is going on? And we walked to the bus stop this morning. My daughter said these snowflakes are pretty, and I said, not in April, they're not. So that's where we're at, but good to talk to you as always. Great to catch up.
Hey, you mentioned that dreaded S word because there was, I was doing the show, look out the old window of the studio, and it's Siberia, it's Planet Hoth outside, and thankfully there was not much accumulation, and Monday we're looking at 70s, and I'll go find my putter. So that's the outlook. But spring football is good, man. Nebraska has some fellas that could be pretty big time catching the football. They're a work in progress, Bill, finding a running back. I think there's talent there, but there's not a lot of availability, and it looks like a new and improved Adrian Martinez. So, hey, there's my report to you on Big Red football, but spring's about optimism.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Ohio State had their spring game, and once all these spring games are over, I'll probably get into a readjusted top 25, but it's good that we're having spring games. It's good that spring practices seem to go off with not too many hitches. Me and the family got a chance to go to a Reds-Indians game over the weekend, and that was a kind of an emotional time because none of us had been in a park in like over a year, and it's very, sports are obviously very important to my family. So it is an exciting time, and it's good to see Nebraska, as you were saying before I came on, that some guys that can catch the football a little bit, give Martinez some options in the passing game.
I got to ask you, we try and hit a different ballpark every year. So Junior has been to the Rockies Stadium. He's been to the Royals, obviously. He gets down to Yankee spring training with Papa Al. But we went up to the new Twin Stadium a couple 3 years ago. That was just fantastic. If you got to tell me where to go, do I go to Cincy or do I go to Cleveland's ballpark first?
Oh, that's a tough call. I mean, honestly, you should go to Pittsburgh first.
Okay.
PNC might be my favorite one of the three in this area. It's such a beautiful ballpark. You're right on the river. Cincinnati does it right. If you go there, you can sit up top, and it's not too bad. Their outfield seats are good, and you sit behind home plate, you get full view of the Ohio River. It's pretty nice. But my wife and son and daughter are all Indian fans, and we really like going up to Progressive Field, formerly the Jake, and just be easy in and out about it. So I think you can't go wrong either way. Prices are affordable, and we saw some pretty good baseball. We always like going down to those Indians-Reds games because a little more heat on it when you got two Ohio teams going.
Big time, absolutely. So the answer is yes. Check out all three. Bill Bender with his Sporting News, joining us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Bill, really enjoy this topic. Enjoy your work with the Super League discussion. And it was pretty prominent on our show yesterday. And you have your top 15 in your Super League. Criteria is pretty cut and dry. It's revenue, it's record, it's rings. Also, draft picks are very important. In your top 15, very high level. Some have Nebraska in that Super League. Some do not. You have Nebraska right on the cusp, and I can see the arguments for no Nebraska based on their last 5 years. I mean, they are a 19-30 football team. The last 10 years, things shake out to about a 7-6 record. The Pelini years, though, very productive with 27 games over 500 and a few trips to at least the conference title game. But Nebraska's been in this just weird decade, and right now Coach Frost trying to get it shifted around. When it came to just leaving Nebraska out, where did they fall short, in your opinion? Was it more about just relevancy, big wins, or I guess what weighed heaviest to keep them out of the party?
I mean, the record, obviously, and the NFL draft picks would be the two categories they fell short. Now, revenue, they are right there with the biggest brands, and I tried to balance all that out. I mean, if you take the top 15 revenue-producing schools, Texas, Michigan, they'll never leave this league. Mm-hmm. And people would say, well, why are Texas and Michigan in there? Well, the money talks. And then one of the categories I did was I took the last 15 schools to win a national championship, and they got a little more weight. And Nebraska still falls on that line, but I think Nebraska and Tennessee, which were both excluded, find the same problem. They're still trying to recapture some of that 90s heyday, and they've both failed to do that. I think that's a fair assessment of the program. And, you could, but, with a couple big seasons, there's the way this league would work, and I like the relegation factor. Like a Nebraska and a Tennessee could take the spots of a Penn State and a Miami in a heartbeat, right? And in a lot of ways, Miami's still trying to capture that 90s heyday. Penn State hasn't won a national championship since 1986, Chris. That's crazy to think about, given how good their program's been.
It is, and they're right there. I know they finished number 2 in 94 to Nebraska. Penn State's been in some New Year's Day sixes. They've won a Big Ten. They've beaten Ohio State. James Franklin has done a phenomenal job there. They just haven't been able to slay Ohio State consistently enough, but neither's most teams not named Alabama or Clemson, right? So they're not super unique there. Penn State's had a lot of recency, and they've been successful, and they've been a top 10 program, right? They've won 9, 10, 11, 12 games, and there's your argument there. And I guess when we talk shelf life of your last national championship, Penn State's not won one since the old Shane Conlon era, and Notre Dame hasn't won one with, you have to go back to 88. But both of those teams have been in the playoff conversation, let alone Notre Dame has made 2 playoff appearances the last 4 years. So I think you can safely give both teams the look in that top 15 here for your Super League based on their recency. Nebraska's last bowl was the Music City Bowl against Tennessee, and that's going on 4 years. But I think Nebraska, once and if things get shifted around, once a blue blood, always a blue blood, you'll be able to come back. And I think that's one thing Nebraska fans look at.
The fun part of putting this list together was kind of seeing how those 4 factors shook out. And, of course, the NFL draft one was one of my colleagues, Matt Listowski, suggested, and he was right. And I kind of made the joke, well, what about graduation rates? We know what you don't see graduation rates posted on the hall in all these athletic facilities. You see the All-Americans and the NFL draft picks, right? So I still think that would be fun. The concept here, obviously, is kind of fun to me, too, because I tell my buddies all the time, there are weekends when I'm like, I don't need to watch Ohio State beat Rutgers by 40. I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't need to watch Ohio State beat Maryland by 60. You want to spice it up a little bit. This would be that NFL light we always talk about. Mm-hmm. And you got to think of it this way, too. If they did something like this, it would incentivize, putting more into the program, making Nebraska better, making Texas better, making Michigan better. And I think it would balance out the league a little bit. I don't watch a lot of European soccer. I'm sorry.
Same.
I don't. It's not that I hate it. It's just that I don't have time. Mm-hmm. I'm doing so many other sports. That's the one that I just don't watch enough of.
Let me ask you this. Nebraska, you can make an argument for, you can make an argument against, but they're right there. They come in 18 in your list of 24 with this Super League of your top 15. Wisconsin's got a great argument with where they're at. They've even been to some New Year's Day sixes, obviously, but they've been so close, but they haven't won a conference title since 2012. Iowa's been pretty consistent as well. They're a team to talk about. Stanford's been a bit down, but they could come back up. They're not a blue blood per se, but they've when they've got it right with their head coach, they've been good. Okie State's usually right there. Washington's fallen off a little bit, but they're a playoff appearance team. What's your take on Oregon? What's your take on A&M? Those are 2 schools that A&M had their best season in forever last year with Jimbo there. I think Oregon's righted the ship with Cristobal. And I don't know if they can get back to Pete, I should say, I about said Pete Carroll, forgive me, to Chip Kelly good. I don't know. I think they could get back in that realm of winning the Pac-12 again. But, man, it seems like overall the Pac-12 is just kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, in Oregon, that Nike money's always there.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously they've had some success. I think they would probably have the edge over a Texas A&M in this particular instance. But Oregon doesn't draw a ton of revenue. Oregon doesn't draw the rate. Nobody goes out of their way to watch Oregon. You know what I mean? And that's part of this too. Mm-hmm. I always tell people, and another school, Texas A&M, same deal. But there was some people pushing back saying, well, why isn't Wisconsin in this? Over Michigan? Mm-hmm. And my answer would be simple. Does Paul Chryst trend on Twitter when he loses a game?
No.
No. Does Jim Harbaugh trend on Twitter when he misses a first down? Yes. So I think a lot more people in general care about Michigan more than they do Wisconsin, for better or worse. And they're the 3rd highest revenue producing school. Michigan would be in this league. I don't know what the Premier League comparison is. I'm sure there's a Fat Cat franchise in soccer that underperforms, and you can make that kind of distinction with Michigan. Some people would want to make that distinction with Notre Dame, even though Notre Dame's made 2 playoff appearances in the last 5 years.
Clemson's a team that has been so good the last decade. But and Bill Bender's with us. We're talking the Super League here. It's been a fun topic this week. His top 15. Check that out. Sportingnews.com at Bill Bender 92. You know, we're not that far removed from Clemson being a top 7 or 8 preseason team. And then they go 10-4 in an okay ACC, the term Clemsoning. But man, once they got it right and they got their quarterback set up, figured out, their assistants haven't gone anywhere. They put a ton of dudes in the NFL. They're killing it. But man, Clemson, it took Clemson, man, they really had to grind to get over that hump. But it's been very fruitful. But they're newer to this domination, but they are something to behold because they're always in that postseason.
Well, had we made the Super League in the 90s, Clemson wouldn't be anywhere near it.
Exactly.
You know, Georgia Tech would be a better bet to be in this league than Clemson at that point. And I think they are kind of the model success story, and I've said it for a couple years now, where you could make the argument in the last 50 years Dabo Swinney's done the best coaching job in college football in turning that program from the Clemsoning, from the punchline. And one other thing to consider, how many programs, and they are objectively the second biggest program in their state. Mm-hmm. So South Carolina is a bigger football program than Clemson, has a bigger following, you know, all those kind of things. And Clemson's built a national championship powerhouse in the same state. So that rarely, if ever, happens. It would be like, you know, Oregon State, or I always use the analogy, it'd be kind of like Cincinnati overtaking Ohio State here in Ohio. That would be the biggest story in college football if that ever happened. And Cincinnati's had good teams, but they've never overtaken the Buckeyes in terms of general interest.
Bill Bender's with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Bill, going to switch gears and talk some NFL draft. We love talking Bengals with you. Zach Taylor, obviously the Nebraska tie. Joe Burrow, till he got hurt, was having a nice rookie season. What does Cincinnati want? What does Cincinnati need at that 5th pick here? They're asking you, the Bengals fan, to make a call. What do you go with? Do you go with the offensive line help, or do you go with one of these talented skill guys?
I think they have to draft Penei Sewell, even though they do have 2 tackles. They got Riley Reif on a prove-it deal. But I say that, Chris, knowing they're probably a good chance they're going to draft Jamar Chase.
Okay.
The best receiver in the draft, another target, obviously, had a prolific season with Joe at LSU. And I think those are the 2. Kyle Pitts will probably get some consideration, but I don't know if he can go a tight end in the top 5. It rarely works out. I put out a stat a couple weeks ago. The only 3 tight ends that have been drafted in the first round that went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame were Ozzie Newsome, Kellen Winslow, and Tony Gonzalez. And none of those guys were top 5 picks. So I think that's why they'll either go Sewell, who they should take, and or Chase. Now, Sewell doesn't have to be Anthony Munoz. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, nobody's Anthony Munoz, right? I don't think anybody's ever been that good at the position. So, but I think that's the right protector for Joe Burrow and investing in his future.
That's Bill Bender, Sporting News, Hail Varsity Radio. A few more minutes with Bill. On the other side, some more thoughts on this quarterback class in the NFL draft. Debate there on Nebraska and that Power League discussion. I know we went into a second day with it from yesterday to today, but Bill had a column come out on it earlier on this morning. Wanted to get his take. He has Nebraska at 18, not quite in at 15, but they can move on up. Reminder about your friends at West Blue Realty. If you're moving in 2021, you know what? They specialize in residential home sales in Lincoln and the surrounding communities. You've mentioned Hail Varsity, and West Blue can give you up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. Tom Luby, the man at 402-540-3768, or Kelly Hofschneider, 402-202-2312, westbluerealty.com. More with Bill Bender next.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
A few more minutes, Hail Varsity Radio, talking with Bill Bender of the Sporting News at Bill Bender 92 on Twitter. Some college football thoughts, his take on Nebraska's relevancy, and now former Husker Zach Taylor, and some Cincinnati Bengals NFL draft thoughts. Let's turn our attention to Kyle Pitts, the stud out of Florida. as we talk more NFL draft here a week away. A thought here on Kyle Pitts. Do you like the Calvin Johnson comps? Can he be Megatron? And that's a huge ask, but speed, size, wow factor. He was great at Florida. Does he translate? And you just gave me the take on, all right, you can do it as a Hall of Fame level guy as a tight end in the NFL. And the three guys you mentioned were great, but Pitts is a flex guy, can present so many matchup issues as a bigger, fast slot option. I love his ability, but do you think he's a guy that can translate?
Oh, for sure. I think so. And I think, I don't know if he's Calvin Johnson. That's a bit high for me in terms of the comp. I think a better comparison would probably be Vernon Davis, who was also drafted in the top 5, who had some
good years.
Yeah. And I mean, if injuries didn't get in the way with Vernon Davis, he probably is even better than he was. And, it's something to watch with tight ends. Kyle Pitts, he even had some injuries last year. So I think that's the better comp for me. I mean, Calvin, Calvin's top 5 receiver in my lifetime, you know, and I still put him in that. He's right in that discussion. Once you get past Jerry Rice and Randy Moss and Terrell Owens, I think Calvin Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald come next. So, and that's a pretty bold comp for that. Now, Jamar Chase, I mean, the guy I really liked, but I mean, the thing that you have to watch there is obviously he sat out a year. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But I think the connection with Burrow would be a factor, and it would show that Burrow has some leverage with the direction he wants to go in with the Bengals.
What's your feel on Zach Taylor? I know he's back, and I know that Cincinnati was excited to get Joe, and I think Zach and Joe can work well. And what's the expectation? Do you worry about Zach Taylor's future if it's still another rebuilding year at Cincy?
Well, they're going to have to show some progress, and I think they're in a tough division. I mean, that's arguably, we've talked about that a little bit before, where, you know, you could say the NFC West is the best division in pro football, and that's fine, but the AFC North, there are 3 franchises that have the quarterback they want, and another that has a Hall of Fame quarterback playing on his last legs. So, I mean, that's my way of saying, you know, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cleveland were all in the playoffs last year. Cincinnati's got a long way to get there, but I think they've taken some steps in the right direction. You know, one of the things I'm looking forward to is the Battle of Ohio, and I wrote about it last year, kind of amping up. And Cleveland did their part last year, and it'll be interesting to see if Cincinnati can do this.
Bill Bender, Sporting News with us, Hail Varsity Radio, at Bill Bender 92. Bill, we'll get you out on this, and thanks for your time. You know, of the quarterback class, and we're a week away from the draft, where are you putting your money on not named Trevor Lawrence? And maybe you're not on the Lawrence wagon about transitioning well, but if you had to put your confidence level in another quarterback, who's it on? Is it on Fields? Is it on Wilson? Is it on Lance? Is it on Mac Jones?
I mean, I know I'm in Central Ohio. I still think Fields is the second best quarterback in this draft. I mean, you saw the upside when he played against Clemson. You've seen him compete with Trevor Lawrence as the 1 and 2 quarterback in that class since high school. And there's been some criticisms of him. We get bored, right? We get bored in this month where we start making some lazy criticisms, and I think that's something that's happened. But I would still take him. A lot of people like Zach Wilson, though. I had one of my friends say he reminds me of Steve Young, and I was like, man, you need to go watch some Steve Young tape and then get back to me.
One of my favorite coaches is he said the Steve Young thing too a lot, and I trust him because he was coaching, you know, in the Steve Young era. But I love Wilson. I love watching him play. I love how fluid he is. I like the deep ball, but I'd go get Fields. I'd absolutely go get Fields because I think he's big time.
Absolutely.
Hey, Bill, we'll do this again, man. We'll get caught up post-draft and kind of reassess. And thanks for the time, and always appreciate you jumping on with us.
And hopefully next time there's no snow on the ground. You guys are the best. Thanks so much for having me on, Chris, and do it again here soon.
Bill Bender, Sporting News, some college football, some NFL draft, good stuff. Back to Nebraska and their practice today. The offense didn't show what they wanted to show, and it was a day for the defense. And a thought here, and it's been talked about, and it's gaining some steam, right, Elijah, when we talk about the running back room, who's available, who's not. Jaquez Yant, the walk-on that is scholarship good and has the size to play in the Big Ten. Here's what Greg Austin had to say about the back. Cut 13 right here.
Yeah, man, he's a big back, big fast back. You know, he plays downhill with his pads. You know, he's gonna bring some thunder to you. And the offensive lineman, we got to get our ass out of the way because he might run us over. You know, he's taken advantage of all the reps that he's received, and he's done well with them. You know, he's been active. He's doing a good job overall. So, you know, we've certainly enjoyed having him back there. But just a, you know, pretty solid guy, solid back.
So that's nice compliments from Greg Austin. And you know what? If Yant has a good spring game, stacks that, and is a viable option with maybe a Scott, you want to see Morrison get back at it. You want to see him carry the football. Tompkins is looking okay, and if not very fast, obviously, but you're still waiting on Ramir, who was dinged, and then of course Stepp was supposed to be that other Big Ten back that's played a high level of college football. Those puzzle pieces so key on the offensive line, and you feel good about your tackle spots and the guys pushing behind a tackle. And you've got Hickson behind Juergens at center. What's going on at the guard spot? More from Coach Austin, and really 9 options on the O-line to look at.
The challenge is puzzling it, but then also the challenge is making sure that the guys understand where their value is. You got that many, when they got that many guys that can play for you. You know, I mean, we live in a world now where, you know, guys can transfer with free will, do whatever. I mean, you know, so you got to recruit them while they're here, you know, as you're coaching them. So you always have to make sure that you're being personable and, you know, doing things with them to make them feel valued. And that's the troubling thing. That's the tough thing, not the troubling thing. That's the tough thing about making sure that you can keep the guys intact, and you're developing your room, developing the culture of your room while you're doing it.
So key to just kind of be straight as an arrow with the guy's value. And that would wear me out, having to constantly re-recruit. But it is important to be able to coach hard, criticize, coach up, and also guys need to be mature enough to know that, A, you're not ready, you're not big enough, you're not strong enough, or you don't know the offense, or guess what, Elijah, it takes a while to get your tricks of the trade down on both lines of scrimmage.
And the thing is recruiting, he's talking about re-recruiting while they're at Nebraska, and the thing with recruiting is it's all about building a relationship. You obviously have to sell the amenities on campus and the trust team, but you need to be able to build that relationship with a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, and make them trust you. And the same goes for the guys on your roster. They can't just be your third-string left guard. They can't just be your backup wide receiver. They have to be a person with a name and a face, and you have to continue to build that relationship with them as they're here, because as you said, it comes down to trust, and how important is trust in a football team?
Well, it's huge. I mean, it's end all be all. You trust what's going on. You're going to go perform it, execute it, buy into it, believe it, and you get good results.
You trust your coach. You're going to trust what they're teaching you. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different with what other coaches in the past have taught you, but you got to trust that what they're teaching you is right for the offense. And the same goes from a coach for his players. You got to trust that your players are going to be able to go execute the game plan you've given them.
So Coach Austin was asked about the approach. Do you have to change your approach to guys in your room, on your roster, that A, you're young and I'm trying to develop you, so when it's your turn, you're next? And Austin's the same dude as when he recruited you to where he's at now.
Absolutely not. Not me, because I love my guys. So I love my guys, and I take care of my guys, then few will leave. If you're up front and you're truthful with your boys about where they are and where you expect for them to be, then you don't have to change who you are. But if you don't take care of your guys, and if you're a guy that, kind of uses guys for just their talents, then yeah, they're going to leave your ass. That's how this deal works.
It's pretty telling, and that's from a lot of years of experience from Coach Austin. If it's just fluff and BS and they don't like their role here, see ya. I'm packing my dorm and I'm getting out.
Now, I don't want to take this one comment out of context, but you got to think back to the departures we saw this offseason. Is he insinuating that maybe Wandale saw himself as just a talent that was being used and not there weren't relationships being built with him? Is that what could be gleaned from that?
I hope not. And I don't know, but I know that there was 11 coaches sent to Wandale's house to recruit him and get him flipped. He's back at Kentucky. He's closer to home, closer to mama, and that's important.
The question of when you get into being genuine, though, were there 11 coaches here on campus that were genuinely making an effort to get to know him and build that trust with him?
You know what? I would think so. I would absolutely think so. It comes down to, as a kid, kind of homesick? Is there other things going on? Does he want to be here? I mean, all those things play into it because you can't complain about usage as far as touches. Now, the way you were used was the issue. But no, I mean, that was a pretty powerful comment from Austin. If you're real all the time, you don't have to change your approach. Do we have time? We have time. All right, last thought on Austin again, kind of putting a bow on the tough day the offense had. Those are my words. I wasn't there. The coaches were, and they're trying to, have a bounce back the next time they buckle it up again.
I mean, I don't know. The things that we always talk about. We talk about, being detailed and how much explosion, how much explosive power can we put into our blocks. We talk about the finish and all of that. I just don't think that there's an end game to that. And when I say that, I'm talking about, have I gotten accomplished what we want to get accomplished? No, because every single day is another day to prove yourself. Every single day is another day to say, hey, we got to go, we got to attack it just like we did the day prior. I mentioned earlier, today was not our standard, but we've been hitting our standard and exceeding our standard in some days prior to today, so that when a day like today happens, you kind of have to go back and say, hey, all right, this is not our standard. We got to get back to where we were, So it's not about an end point. It's more of a just process. Just continue to work the process, And that's what we've been preaching to the boys every day.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday, Lincoln Orthopedic Center. Dr. Brandon Seifert with us. Dr. Brandon, how you doing?
Chris, I'm great, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Soon enough, we'll get into some NBA postseason. That's when I start really paying attention to the association. But there's been a lot of drama, man, with the Brooklyn Nets on paper and occasionally when they're all together on the court, man. This is probably the team to beat. Philly's there, obviously, and, of course, the Lakers and Clippers out of the West are pretty awesome as well. But, man, we're talking the walking wounded here in Brooklyn, and James Harden, again, suffering a setback here with a hamstring issue.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. As I was reading through his history, it sounds like he maybe tweaked this kind of around the end of March time frame. Started out maybe a little gastroc or calf strain, then had to retweak it again maybe a couple weeks later, and it was more on the hamstring side. So going through a typical recovery protocol with those, what's a kind of standard return after a hamstring strain. If you're talking your standard run-of-the-mill strain kind of in the middle of that muscle belly on the back of the thigh, you're probably looking somewhere between 3 to 6 weeks. Obviously, that's really variable depending on the grade of the strain. So he was cruising along, it sounds like, and then they started to, kind of just gradually introduce more activity level, higher level things for him, and it sounds like he retweaked it. Sounds like they even did an MRI after that happened. And now we're getting the message out there that, indefinitely out for a while. So the question there becomes, what changed on that MRI? I would assume he probably had an MRI before. They tend to MRI everything, including fingernail injuries in the NBA. So as you compare those things, if they're talking indefinitely for him versus before, given a kind of a true timetable, this probably is an injury that's maybe moved up a little bit higher within the thigh. Just going back here to kind of remind the audience of anatomically, what are we talking about? Everybody's pretty familiar with the hamstring, but essentially where that is on the back of your thigh. It comes up and attaches up kind of on the bottom part of the gluteus region up in an area called the ischial tuberosity. It's kind of the bump you feel on the back when you sit down. And then obviously the hamstring muscles go down and attach, go back behind the knee and down on top of the kind of calf area and the tibia. Most of the time, these strains are, again, in kind of the muscle portion, which, again, that's a good place to have it. Those heal well. They don't need any surgery. Where you start to run into troubles with these is as they start to creep further up near their attachment site on that ischial-tuberosity on the pelvis. That becomes more of an issue in terms of, now you're talking potentially surgery, but also in terms of recovery. It's just a lot longer recovery as you start to work further up on the pelvis.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. We're talking James Harden of the Nets. Another setback, his hamstring injury. I know he was doing some jogging, and it kind of got tweaked there. He's missed the last 6 games. Last played on April 5th against the Knicks. So Harden has been incredible when he's been healthy. We're talking 25, 8, and 10. We're nearly a triple-double, and he's worked well and played nice with his teammates because you got KD over there and, of course, Kyrie. And Kyrie's his own special sort of magic when he's playing. So with the hamstring here, why do guys keep tweaking it? I guess that's my question because, I mean, it's not just NBA. It happens in the NFL. It happens in baseball. And once a guy gets a hamstring, unless you just say stay hands off, it seems like guys try to rush back, and it ends up costing them more time than originally just going on the shelf for a while. And I know these athletes are competitive and they want to ball, but man, the hamstrings got to be one of the most annoying injuries, not only to treat, but also to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. That's a great point, and it is. It's tough. You know, obviously you feel for the athletes because they're dealing with it, and it's an easy thing to retweak. It's an easy enough thing to kind of get back, especially in those lower grade strains, to get back to, I feel just good enough to get back and play, and then what do? You go out and you retweak the thing, and then you set that rehab course, a little further out there. The hard part about these is no matter how long you kind of take that process, unless you totally just shut it down for 3 or 4 months, you're going to have a little bit of that kind of retweak stuff going on when you go back. Usually it's pretty mild if you're kind of at that point where you're ready to return, but if you do try to go back too early, that kind of healing of that muscular area, when it heals back, it's never quite the same tissue. It's a mixture of kind of some normal muscle in the area, but also a mixture of some scar tissue. Doesn't have that same firing ability, power ability, doesn't have that same kind of elastic quality. So it's pretty easy as you're running, you're doing the sport, and when we say kind of retweak it, essentially what happens is that big muscle contracts. Mm-hmm. It starts to pull through that kind of scar tissue, fibroblastic area, and pull those tissues apart, and that's kind of that retweak. Then you bleed again, gets irritated again, and again, if it's just a little kind of small area of injury, then you can kind of push through that. But obviously, the larger that area is, the more of an impact it has when you have that kind of second retweak event. So it is tough. Again, these are always hard. There's no kind of black and white on when to return with these things. It's just kind of a battle, and you kind of struggle through it for that first kind of anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks on your way back. Sometimes you just deal with it for the rest of the season. The biggest thing is just making sure that, you're protecting their strength. You got to get them back to that kind of close to that full strength level. And number 2, you've got to be so careful about making sure that's not creeping up onto that tendon that hooks onto the pelvis. That's where you got to be careful.
What kind of work can you do while you're on the mend to stay in shape or stay strong while not making this region worse? And with Harden, he's so good at his side-to-side movement and then the way he can accelerate and get downhill to the rim on top of his step-back game. The hamstring, how temperamental is this with his game, knowing how he likes to play ball?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another good question and a good point. It's going to be, a bit of an issue, obviously, with the things he likes to do. Anytime you're talking that explosiveness, that's going to have an impact upon that, both just in terms of when can he get back feeling, strong enough to do it, and then number two, having a little bit of that hesitancy, wondering if he's going to retweak it when he starts doing it again. So you'll kind of battle some of that mental aspect of it. What can you do during this time? The biggest thing with these is, an early kind of aggressive therapy program for some gentle stretching, some gentle range of motion, doing some kind of E-stem stuff to kind of contract that muscle to get it going a little bit, obviously not at a high level early. And those are some things you can kind of do early on. But obviously given enough time where those tissues have time to kind of remodel and reform appropriately. There are some, biologic age you could think about in this situation. They didn't say specifically if they tried these, but they may have. Using a thing called PRP, which we've talked about before in here on the show, platelet-rich plasma, where you take out your blood, spin it down in the centrifuge, use that top layer of fluid, which has some really great healing factors, the most common of which is called platelet-derived growth factor. You can inject that right into that injury area and hopefully help to promote some healing there. Typically it takes 2 or 3 of those shots to have the best benefit. So that'd be something they may have tried with him already. That's kind of some of the what we call magic sauce they may use to do that. But outside of that, it's just a gradual return, slow program, making sure you're protecting that tendon towards the top near its attachment.
Dr. Brandon Seifert. Dr. Brandon, thanks so much for the time today.
You bet, Chris. You guys take care.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, get the podcast, Elijah Herbel. We'll get that up shortly. Also, some 2-minute drills, some of the best of the interview portions today. Bill Bender, Mike Babcock, Shuey. So good stuff from them. ESPNLincoln.com. The on-demand also is key for you. ESPN Lincoln on Twitter. And with the podcast, find us, Hurrdat Media, and a slew of podcasts to pick out and check out from Hail Varsity and also the entertainment and comedy world through Hurrdat. So check those out and find our podcast, Hail Varsity Radio, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, good, bad, or ugly. Give us a rating. Tell us what you think. Tomorrow, we'll hear from Parker Gabriel, Lincoln Journal-Star, Gary Barnett, Brandon Vogel, Pride of Chicago, Danny Burke, with some best bets for you. So we spent all day today kind of recapping practice. And again, Greg Austin's words, Coach Becton's words, not up to the standard. But it wasn't all bad for the offense. Thomas Fedoni turned some heads in practice today per his position coach, Coach Becton.
Well, today was the best practice he's had since he's been here. It's been a step-by-step process with him. He's coming to work as soon as he's gotten here, and we've given him a lot of information, and he's done an unbelievable job. My goal for him, I told him I'm going to press him on every single detail that when he's in. Same thing with Carney. But Fedoni has really, really improved since day one. And he's only going to get better from here. The sky's the limit with him. He caught maybe 4 or 5 passes a day. Really had a really good scrimmage. He's starting to understand the techniques and how to practice on the college level. And this is his best day by far. So I'm really, really proud of where he's come. We just got to keep pressing him to continue on. He's going to help this football team this year.
More on that growth from Fedoni.
That's where he's a physical kid, but far as understanding the footwork and technique, hand placement, he was kind of deficient in. And today he put it all together for us. I walked him off the field, coming off the field, told him how proud I was of him, and continue to work and continue to progress and don't go backwards from here. So I'm really excited where he is.
So by now, between social media, print media, radio, probably some TV, the offense is sick of hearing about their day. So if you're a betting man, would you put a little money down that the offense will be a little more spark-filled tomorrow?
Sure hope so. I sure hope so.
You'd think, right? So what is for dinner tonight?
For me?
Yeah, I asked Damon this. I asked you. Has Dad got something going on the grill for you?
Not that I know of.
So there was no, hey, stop on by for beer and tacos text?
I wish. wish.
So it's what at home?
I don't even know, actually. I could just go some easy, like, spaghetti. That'd be really easy. I have zero plans. It's been a homework type of day. I'm trying to finish up my Spanish class right now.
Lo siento. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't even know that.
So what, dude? I'm the worst Spanish student in the history of Nebraska.
Hey, I didn't go to college to learn Spanish.
No kidding. All right. We'll back at you tomorrow, 4:00. Hail Varsity Radio, and thanks for tuning in. Talk to you tomorrow at 4.